Good morning. It's Monday morning. I'm here in my kitchen, and of course, we can always learn a little bit about our kitchen in terms of knives. How many knives do you need? How should you use them? And even that peeler. How can we properly use that peeler? Well, we have this morning chef Jillian Hillier that's joining us, and she is the chef and creator of the Fare Thee Well blog. Jillian, good morning to you.
Good morning, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is one of my happy places. I love being in the kitchen, but I got to admit, I don't know if I have proper knife skills. I kind of fake it till I make it. But a sharp knife, that's really where it all begins.
Absolutely. Having a sharp knife is essential. I know a lot of people are intimidated by sharp knives, but you're actually a lot more likely to cut yourself with a dull knife as opposed to a sharp one. And speaking of sharpening, a lot of us have this in their knife block. This is a honing steel, sometimes referred to as a sharpening steel, just to confuse us even more, but it doesn't actually sharpen our knives. What it does is realigns the blade when it gets out of alignment. So for sharpening, I recommend a countertop knife sharpener like this one. It's super easy to use, and I recommend to sharpen your knife about once every 2 weeks. However, if you're starting with a dull knife, get it sharpened by a professional first, and then maintain that edge once every couple weeks.
So this does nothing. Like sometimes I try to make myself look all cool before you're going to do the roast or the steak.
So it does, like I said, it does realign the blade, and your blade can get out of alignment if you're cutting through things like bones or maybe a butternut squash so that it's really tough to get through. Your knife can get out of alignment, and that's a great way to get it straight.
So I have this knife block that's here. Thanks to my sister. This is one of my housewarming gifts. Do I need all these knives? Because it's a lot of fun in here. There's so many different ones, and I'm like, well, what do I do?
Great question. As a chef, I actually only recommend that a home cook really only needs three main types of knives. The first one being our chef knife. This is what you're going to call the workhorse because you should be using this for 90% of the cuts that you do in the kitchen. I know it's intimidating because of its weight and size, but that's actually what's going to help you make all those cuts when you're doing all that meal prep. Next up, we have our bread knife, and it really is only for use for cutting bread. When I was a kid, I used to be told to use this as for cutting tomatoes, and that was because our chef knife was never sharp enough to cut through the skin of a tomato. If your chef knife can't cut through that skin, you definitely need to get it sharpened. And lastly, we have our paring knife. I see so many people using this to cut small things like Brussels sprouts and cheese. If you're doing that, you're putting so much strain on your wrist, and really this should be only used for peeling vegetables and segmenting citrus.
So I have the chef's knives, which is the bigger one that's here. And then I have this one, which is kind of like a mid-size one. It seems like that's the one I like just because of the weight. It just seems like it fits in your hand.
Absolutely. So it's really just a personal preference. Some people prefer the larger style of chef knife, but there are different styles of chef knife. You just have to go with what feels good in your hand.
Okay, talk to me about peelers. So I have a peeler that's here. I don't have a potato, but I have a sweet potato with me. Tell me a little bit about the world of peelers, because this is something you need as well.
Absolutely. We all need a peeler in our kitchen. So the peeler that you have, Frank, is called a swivel peeler. And you can actually use the tip. The pointed tip is actually used for digging out blemishes and bruises in your fruits and vegetables like
Cool.
a potato. And in your case, a sweet potato. So why don't you give that a shot?
I did right now. It's actually it's cool. I never knew what that was for. There's so many things in my kitchen I don't know what they're for.
Absolutely. So some viewers at home might actually have a Y peeler, and there's this little circle on the side, and that's used for the same purpose, digging out those blemishes.
And then how about the onion? So basically when it comes to cutting and cutting skills, it always goes down to just the basic onion. So is there a proper way that we should be doing it, or, where do we start?
Absolutely. Everyone's favorite question to ask is, how do I cry less when cutting onions? And you're probably like, oh my gosh, we've heard it already, Chef Jill. You need to make sure that you have a sharp knife. When you use a sharp knife to cut an onion, it's going to cut a lot more quickly, and then you're going to release less of that gas that makes us cry. And while we're here, why don't I show you how to actually cut this onion and how to hold your knife properly. So what you want to do with your knife is you want to pinch the blade between your thumb and your pointer finger and wrap the remaining three fingers around your handle, and use your free hand as a claw to hold that onion. And you're going to have your fingertips pointing down and use your knuckle as a guide as you slice. And this is going to protect those fingertips.
And that's good with anything. I know when I'm cutting cucumbers, other things like that, I always use those fingers as that guide, as that protection.
Absolutely. That's like my most favorite tip to show people because it'll keep those fingertips safe.
So, Jillian, where can more people find more information about you?
You can find me on my Instagram or on my blog at farebewell.ca.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm not crying with this onion quite yet, but I'm going to continue to cut and continue to do great things in the kitchen. Have a wonderful morning and take care of yourself.
Thanks, Frank.